Our first speaker will be Scott Thomas, and he will be speaking from the Engaging Humor Path, Level 3 elective project, Inspire Your Audience. And the speech title is Following the Path. Since its introduction, Pathways has been a source of education, but also no small amount of confusion and frustration. In tonight's speech, Scott will be attempting to address a little of the confusion, walking through the anatomy of a pathway path. Scott, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. In 2017, late 2017, I joined Toastmasters. When I joined, I was handed a couple of notebooks. They had lists of speeches and projects, places where I could write my ideas down. It was lovely. A few weeks later, I was informed that it's not worth spending the time starting to work in those notebooks because that is going away. We are going to a wonderful electronic system called Pathways. To say that there were some growing pains would be a little bit kind. Despite the challenges and the frustration, being an early adopter, I've attempted to try and help others ease their way through the Pathways system. Tonight, I'll be talking a little bit about why it makes sense to try and do so. Let's start with the big picture. Why? Why use Pathways? Why spend the time identifying and logging a project for a club meeting instead of just giving a random speech? That's a great question. It's an opportunity for growth. Pathways contains lots of different modules, lots of different suggestions that give you a path to improve your skill set. Specifically for the individual member, it provides structure, especially for newer speakers, for newer members. It helps guide through some basic qualities everyone needs to develop if they want to become a better communicator. It exposes you to projects and experiences you may not otherwise think of or look into. I'll get to some of those in a little bit. If you're someone that's goal-oriented, like I am, it gives you a new objective to try and conquer, a new hill to climb. It helps expose other members and guests to new experiences as well, things they may not have thought of. And it also helps support club goals. For our club, though, given our recent structure, the way we approach the agenda, we had speeches being given that weren't really called speeches. There was an education moment. There was a theme discussion from our Toastmaster. But people simply weren't getting credit for something they were already doing. The biggest what's in it for me for our club members is using Pathways and logging projects gives you credit for what you're already doing, the work you're already putting in. For the club, we have a collective goal as well. As you accomplish and conquer each level within a path, that gets points for the clubs. If you get a certain number of points as a club, you reach a certain status, either distinguished, select distinguished, or president's distinguished. For many of us, this collective group goal is a wonderful thing to try and pursue, and it's a nice little bonus for the club. Let's talk for a minute about what a path looks like. One of the most daunting things for new members is trying to visualize what all of this looks like. For those of you that have been in the Pathway system, if you're anything like me, you may say that it's not exactly intuitive working through the system. It wasn't designed by the same people that built the Googles. Each path has 5 levels. The first level has 3 projects comprising 4 speeches, an icebreaker, which is a get to know you, some basic evaluation, getting used to giving feedback, and some basic research. The next level, same for all paths as well, starts looking at speaking specifics. How are you communicating? What's your normal style? How do you use body language? And because mentorship is one of the main ways we learn, you do a project that talks about mentoring. When you get to level 3, this is where the paths start to differentiate from each other. I'm talking about, I used presentation mastery as the example tonight, as this is one of the most common pathways chosen. But you do a project that teaches you about how to be persuasive when you speak. You also get a laundry list of electives to choose from. When you move up to the 4th level, you get a project where you get to be interrupted and figure out how to stay cool under fire when you've got an audience that's not cooperating. You branch into more electives. This is where some of the unique projects or challenges I mentioned come in. I had never thought about doing a podcast until I saw it in a pathway. I still haven't done one, but at least I've given it some thought. And finally, the capstone level, level 5 in each path, is where you get the opportunity to really show everything you've learned. Presentation mastery, you've got a long 20+ minute speech to give. To practice having polish for longer duration, as well as additional electives. One of the challenges some people have, especially when they've done 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 paths the way some of us have, is it starts to get redundant. You start doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. You have the opportunity, though, to be creative with your projects. Think outside of the box. I think you may have an opportunity to hear a little bit more about this at another point in time. But for example, if you're doing your 3rd or 4th icebreaker, maybe you don't want to talk about the basics of where you're from. Find a story that helps people understand and get to know you. When you're talking about your communication style, again, maybe you can pick someone who you'd like to emulate or is notable in the way they communicate and talk about their process. You can do this for all of the projects and pathways. You don't have to be constrained to the box. What I would challenge all of us to do next, to make it a habit to log the projects we're doing to get credit for ourselves in the club, are 3 things. First, make it a habit. If you're doing a prepared speaking role, spend the time going into pathways, figure out a project that fits. If you need help, as the VPE, my job is to assist with that. Be creative in how you approach the projects. Give yourself latitude and a long leash to figure out how you're going to meet those objectives. And finally, plan ahead. For most of us, going to Toastmasters isn't the only thing we do all day. There are projects that are going to line up to other parts of your life. If you plan ahead a little bit and read ahead, you'll probably have the opportunity to use something outside of Toastmasters for that Toastmasters project. If we all do this, I would imagine we will see great gains both individually and as a club. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Scott. You explained everything so clearly, and it was very inspirational. And I am excited to introduce our next speaker, Celeste Smucker, who is going to continue the theme. She's going to speak from Pathways Leadership Development Path Level 5, Project Manage Successful Events. And the speech title is Be Creative, Detours on the Path. Pathways is about building skills such as leadership development, and some of the steps involve activities that make us use those skills. Sometimes, though, the activities aren't a good fit. Rather than let that hold you back from moving forward on the path, you can use what you have learned to be creative and maybe even taking a detour or 2. Celeste, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, it is happening again. I am stuck on the path, and there's a huge boulder in the way. It's been 5 years, maybe longer, and I'm finally ready to finish this leadership development and move on. But how am I supposed to do but now I'm supposed to do a project, and that project is to plan an event. It's supposed to use what I've learned so far in leadership development, which is to work with a team, coordinate functions, delegate, manage resources, set goals, all things a good leader would do. So one of the possibilities would be to organize a contest. Guys, no way is that going to happen. A couple of years ago, when I agreed to be VPE for a year, one of the conditions was that if there was a contest, somebody else would have to organize it. Another alternative, I could plan an open house to attract new members. Are you kidding? That would involve me coming to an event, being friendly, getting way out of my comfort zone. And physically present would be difficult because actually I live 5 hours away. That would be a long trip. So what now? Do I get another path? I've taken that introductory test lots of times. I always get the same result. So somebody somewhere wants me to be a leader. What I learned, though, is that just because I'm on a path doesn't mean I can't take a detour. Why not, after all, be creative? And you, fellow Toastmasters, can do the same. My main message here is to follow the path, but don't get held up for 5 years by being too literal. I did get through it, and along the way, I took 3 detours. Let me tell you about them. Detour number 1, it's not exactly an event that I did, but I realized planning an event is just one way to organize and coordinate and communicate and delegate and set goals. There are other ways a group of people can work together to create something bigger than themselves. As it happened, I kind of accidentally got involved in a project that involved many of the same skills. After I moved back to Virginia, I met with the director of a retreat center ashram where I live called Synchronicity. I was well known there, having worked there for years prior to moving down to Boone. I explained that the ashram's website called synchronicity.org really needed help. They had just spent a ton of money on it, and it was pretty. It really looked pretty, but the text folks basically kind of sucked. I was a little nicer in explaining that to him, but I do try sometimes. Fortunately, he was open to my message. We set up a general meeting, and the ashram residents were all there, as well as a number of community people like myself, people who are active in the organization. A few of them talked a little bit too much, and usually in situations like that, I don't say much of anything, but no doubt, thanks to Toastmasters, I felt very confident. I spoke up with a number of suggestions. Then I took the initiative, because I'm a leader, and I generated a report about the site's shortcomings and what we could do about them. After several meetings, a small group of us was formed to continue to work together to accomplish some of the goals the others and I had agreed upon. Even though this was not an event, it was a project involving many of the same skills. Detour number 2, I was actually more of a catalyst than a leader. Still, the formal membership of the group went to somebody else, for which I was actually grateful. This was somebody I continued, however, to direct much of the relevant work, mainly the writing and optimizing of the text for the website. We really needed to get more of our content closer to the first page of Google. A year later, I was able to report that our site's authority had increased significantly, and it was thanks largely to my behind-the-scenes direction of content creation. Still, without me, our success would have been limited. Detour number 3, I took 7 months off. Mostly, of course, this was for health reasons. But the good news is the group continued to operate just fine without me, although the domain authority stalled as they lacked my writing and SEO skills. I'm back at it now. I'm rewriting, I'm updating, and I'm working behind the scenes as the chief catalyst. That's my name for it. Don't tell anybody. I feel like I've satisfied the requirements of my pathway, and I'm ready to move forward to the next project. Fellow Toastmasters, pathways can teach us a lot. And sometimes we learn best when we take the skills we learn and try a few detours. So don't be intimidated by the requirements. You too can forge your own path. Madam Toastmaster.
Such an amazing speech, Celeste. Thank you so much, and great advice as well. You were a leader in this situation, and you completed the leadership number 5, level 5 project. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And the next speaker, it's me, and I am going to speak from Engaging Humor Path, Level 3 elective project. Focus on the positive. The speech title is The Importance of Having a Vision. Leaders usually are visionaries and as such have a vision. Not always, though, that vision is put down in writing. Even when it is, often the vision is not communicated well enough or at all to everyone in the organization. Today, I will share with you why that is a problem. And I also need to share the screen. Recently, I was looking at a job description at an American nonprofit organization that has close ties with Latvia. And the first item on the responsibility list was strategic planning. So I looked for a vision statement on the organization's website in order to understand what future they are trying to shape. But I found out only the organization's mission. The vision statement was not there. Now, why was it important for me to see that vision? Aren't vision and mission the same? Well, in fact, they are not, and that is often not understood. I like how Michael Hyatt explains the difference in his book, The Vision-Driven Leader. He says that while mission defines what an organization is, a vision describes where it's going. The Vision-Driven Leader is a book mostly for profit-oriented businesses, but I find that the author's ideas are applicable to other organizations as well. I have read it many times, and I use the author's ideas also in my coaching practice. Michael Hyatt says that leaders often have a vision in their heads, but they fail at communicating it to teams, so the teams can't be helpful enough. Therefore, it is important to have a vision script that explicitly describes the future of the organization in 4 key areas, and they are the team, the products, sales and marketing, and impact. To make this tip applicable for our club, we need to answer, who is our team? What are our products? And who do we sell to and market to? Well, it seems simple to me. The team is us, all of us. The products are our meetings and our experiences. And we market to our guests, but not only, we also market to ourselves, hoping that we will extend our memberships. But now, let me ask you a question, and please be honest. Provided that you still live in this world 3 years later, do you see yourself as part of this club? Type 1 in the comment section if you are 95% yes. Type 2 if you think that probably not. And type 3 if you're thinking, I'm not sure. So 1 is likely yes, 2 likely no, and 3 not sure. For those of you who are not sure, I'll reshape the question. And my question is, what would the club need to be like after those 3 years for you to be a yes sayer? So think again. What would the club need to be like for you to be likely a yes? When we approach the question this way, that's when we start creating a vision, and along with that, the club for our future selves. So let's practice. Think about whether you would like the club to still be hybrid as it is right now, virtual only, or in-person only. You can also type if you'd like in the comment section again. But I'll tell you about the club that I was a part of once. It's the Bedford Toastmasters Club. They took a very courageous step and went in person only to draw people back into the room after the lockdown. They lost me and they lost some other members, but guess what? Now their membership is close to 30. People were looking to meet again in person. Being an online virtual only club also has benefits. And one of them is the focus is really clear. A virtual club helps members hone their skills of speaking to virtual audiences. As concerns the hybrid meetings that I have attended, I have to be honest, those have not been my best experiences for various reasons, mostly for technical reasons. But despite that fact, if I were to vote, I would say that in 3 years, I would still like our club to be hybrid. One of the reasons is because I'd like to attract people from other cultures so that we expand awareness and so that our focus is beyond what we are being fed in terms of information here in the United States. With that in mind, my vision script, if I were to draft one for our club, would say that our technologies would be so progressive that it would significantly improve the experience of the attendees. In fact, I would like the virtual experience be so good that even long distance members would travel to our future meetings, maybe once a year. Maybe we have an annual event. I know I am a dreamer, and I know that we are on a budget, but think scarcity. It's usually a negative term. However, I will quote Michael Hyatt again, and he says that scarcity forces us to ask what we really want, while abundance of resources can enable us in avoiding the hard work of getting clear on our vision. So my call to action for you today is, let's start our awesome future club by writing a vision script. When you have a moment later, tonight, or maybe over the weekend, visualize what the first perfect future club would be like in terms of our members, meetings and events, our website and other online presence, and our impact. And I will be having the officers meeting next week, and I hope you all will attend. Back to you, everybody. I need to stop sharing. Thank you.
Great speech. I got a lot more out of both of your speeches watching them this time than I did the first time.
Thank you.
I wish I had a video of the first time, because I know